In terms of money, we have no money.
A few months ago, I made a video talking about how French football was in a lot of trouble. And this came off the back of the relegation to Bordeaux, to the 4th tier of French football. Now, I imagine Bordeaux will work their way back up pretty quickly, but even still, it'll be a good few years before we see them back in anything substantial yet. And recently, it was just announced that the same thing is happening to Olympique Lyon. They are struggling with serious financial charges, being over €500 million in debt. This comes from some simple factors such as the club having the second highest wage bill in the league and yet not having finished in the top 4 since the end of the 2021 season. So if Lyon can't raise enough money by the end of the season, they are facing potential relegation to Ligue 2.
Let's see what the damage is. Only
€500+ million.
That's not so bad. I'll just subtract it from today's profit. And there's no money in here.
And this would be another massive blow to the French game. But Lyon's struggles aren't the only reason that French football is struggling. Today I want to revisit some other reasons, give some updates and look at some reasons I didn't mention last time on why French football is struggling and what I think some French teams could do to try and pick the league back up. So the first team I want to look at is PSG, and this is the same team that I looked at first last time. Basically, PSG have adopted a very different strategy in recent years since Messi, Neymar and Mbappe have left, and I personally think PSG are taking a turn for the better. But for a few years it's going to be pretty detrimental to the French game. They don't have the big superstars anymore to bring in the big watching viewership numbers. But I think their transfers have been great. I mean, this season they've only actually spent money to buy 4 players, and João Neves for €60 million is their big blockbuster signing. It's pretty tame, in all honesty. €60 million in this market's not a lot. Other than that, they've bought Desiree Doué from Rennes for €50 million, but again, that's €50 million that's going back into the league. William Pacho from Frankfurt and Matvey Safonov has come in from Krasnodar for €20 million. And otherwise, PSG's been pretty quiet in the transfer market. They're focusing more on promoting really good youth players and young French players that they've bought in from within the league and elsewhere. Particularly right now, 2 of their most important players are Bradley Barcola and Warren Zaïre-Emery. 2 young French players, one was bought in from the league and one came through PSG's academy. This is exactly what PSG need to do in my opinion, although the superstars are still there. You still have some massive names like Marquinhos, Achraf Hakimi, Ousmane Dembele, Marco Asensio and Gonçalo Ramos and Randal Kone Muani. But gone are the days where PSG are doing stupid things like spending €95 million on a striker who the previous season was bought by Frankfurt for free. Seriously, one good season and they dropped nearly €100 million. What? Why? What? No, not one season, no!
Not about money, it's about sending a message.
They've also done really good business signing players like Vitinha and Fabian Ruiz. You know, not massive fees for these guys, but they are very, very good players. Kang In Lee is another one as well. But because of this probably helps the struggles of Ligue 1's image rights, their TV rights. In the summer, Ligue 1 secured a deal until 2029 with Daizen Sports. This was for a fee of €500 million a season until 2029. So if we count that as 5 seasons, that's €2.5 billion. Now that might sound like a lot, but for what's supposed to be a top 5 league, it really isn't. For context, at the start of next season, the Premier League will move to a new deal that will run for 4 seasons. So a season less than what France's new sponsor is going to run for, but they won't make €2.5 billion over 5 years. They'll make over €6.5 billion across 4 years. And of course I should mention the Premier League's deal is in pounds, not euros, which the French deal's in, so if you do the exchange rates it actually works out at even more of a difference. Now this isn't the only way that teams make money, but it's certainly a big one and it helps particularly the smaller teams. Now if we look at the Ligue 1 table, there's obviously a few teams that are very, very safe because of their ownership in terms of the financial sense. These teams would be the likes of PSG and Monaco being the obvious ones. As well as this, Nice are owned by Ineos, the same group that's just bought a 25% stake in Manchester United, and Strasbourg have the same owners as the people that have Chelsea. So these teams are pretty safe. As for the rest of the league, I'll be honest, I don't know. But I'm sure we all probably would have thought teams like Bordeaux and Lyon would have been ran very well and have pretty deep pockets to fall back on, but it would seem that maybe they actually don't. And even if you look at the league right now, you can already see the effects of this start to happen. Teams are struggling. Bordeaux are gone, it looks like Lyon could be gone soon. Montpellier is another massive team, they sit rock bottom. Saint Etienne are in the relegation zone, they've never been able to claw into even being really a mid-table team for a long period of time. Nantes aren't doing well, Rennes aren't doing well. Brest, although they're in the Champions League, have started relatively poorly. Lens, who were in the Champions League not that long ago, they're not really doing great. And this comes on to my next point that I want to talk about, French teams in Europe. Now, I'm going to be honest, French teams in Europe is a bit of a pointless cause. They are very, 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 very underwhelming. And I think this is another massive factor as to why the league is kind of struggling a little bit. No one really takes the French clubs seriously on the big stage. I mean, yeah, PSG were always a force to be reckoned with because of the players they had, but let's be real here, no one ever thought they were going to win the major competitions. And to back this up with numbers, if we look at the Champions League for the last 10 seasons, only 5 times has a French club been present as far as the semi-finals. Monaco have done it once, PSG 3 times, and Lyon once. It's not as if France is a juggernaut in the Europa League, kind of like a Sevilla type thing either, because in the last 10 years we've only seen French clubs present as far as the semi-final in the Europa League 3 times. Marseille twice and Lyon once. And this is where I want to move into sort of less criticism and more construction. Now, I want to break the league into basically 3 categories for how I think the French league could start to prosper again and recover. So the first one I'd like to cover is PSG, and what I'd say to them is keep doing what you're doing. In all honesty, PSG looks great right now. I know that may be a bit of a controversial opinion, but I genuinely believe that sometimes these big teams need to take 2 steps back in order to take 3, 4 or even 5 steps forward. And right now they're doing everything they should be doing, prioritising youth, prioritising buying in young French players who understand what it means to be there and want to earn their payday instead of just buying the top stars from across Europe who come into the league and immediately think they're too good for it. They've done it for years and it never worked. Sure, you had the amazing talent and brilliance of people like Ibrahimovic, Cavani, Verratti, Mbappe, Neymar for a while, but there's no guarantee that you get that with them. And to be honest, for as great as those players were, PSG never done anything substantial in Europe. I mean, the big thing that they've always wanted to try and get is that Champions League, and all of those players have tried, all of those players have failed. And when they left, they probably got when they were there, but they didn't leave a legacy that kept the league going, in my opinion. Sure, they'd be remembered. It's harsh to say that no one remembers them or they were a detriment to the league, but I don't think they benefit the league as much as what people like Bradley Barcola will be when they move on, because they know the league, they've came through the league, they've kept money in the league, and they'll bring more money into the league and leave a legacy there. Which right now is what the French league needs a lot more than, like, if you're Spain or England or Germany, you can do the other side of it, but right now France needs to build up from within. And that brings me on to my next set of teams. These will be the likes of your Monacos, Marseilles, Lille, Lyon, Nice, Rennes, and that is prioritise your future and prioritise the European competitions. Obviously not to an extreme degree, but there has to be more of a consistent movement from the French teams in the European competitions. Now, I'm not saying that PSG or Brest or anything like that should be winning the Champions League, but as the numbers I mentioned earlier, they really need to try and focus more on seeing if they can get some deeper runs into this competition, because it will really help, especially, bolster the names of their squads and the names of their players and garner some more respect, which can only help going back into the league and help them challenge PSG to topple them and win a league title. And the final set I want to go into is basically everyone else in the French football pyramid. And that is, right now, prioritise not spending out with your means, and prioritise the development of young talent within your team. Now I know that seems like an obvious thing to say. Everyone would say that to basically every team. Obviously with the big teams you don't need to say that, but I think particularly in France, saying prioritise the youth carries a lot of weight, because let's be honest here, France is the biggest talent factory in world football. I'd like to read out the names of some players who in the last 3 or 4 years have left the French league or moved on to PSG for massive fees, and all of these players either came through at French teams, the teams they left, or they were bought in very young for much smaller fees than what they left for. Lenny Yoro, Desiree Doué, Jeremy Doku, Bradley Barcola, Axel Disasi, Luis Openda, Castello Luqueba, Leslie Ugachukwu, Carlos Baleba, Aurelien Tchouameni, Amadou Onana, Benoit Badiashile, Sven Botman, Paulo Gusto, Bruno Guimaraes and Eduardo Camavinga. And that's not me naming all of them, that's just a select few that I picked out because I like the names of. There is absolutely loads, and France is a constant talent factory, and there is absolutely no shortage of people that are lining up to buy these players. And this goes for some of the bigger teams as well. What I find interesting in terms of Lyon's financial struggles is that they actually have the second highest wage bill in the league. And when you look at some of their squad, it's filled with old names who you would pray weren't on massive wages at the club, but they clearly are, and they don't warrant them. Some of the players I'm talking about are Nicolas Tagliafico, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Nemanja Matic, Jordan Vertu, Corentin Tolisso, Said Benrahma, Wilfried Zaha. All of these guys, I can only imagine, are on far more money than what they're supposed to be, and for years I would say none of them have really done anything to warrant being at a club as big as Lyon. Yeah, I know some of them are on loan, and I know a lot of them were free transfers, which, you know, fair enough, but a free transfer is only fair enough unless they come in and demand an enormous wage, in which case, are you really saving any money? Is it really worth it? And again, the main point I would put back on any of these players is none of them have really gave that much of a return on their investment. Sure, I don't watch French football enough to actually tell you the ins and outs and the regular standards that Tagliafico puts out, but I mean, they can't be that good. Lyon aren't sitting in a particularly great position in the league. They're 5th right now, only a point behind Lille for example, but only 5 wins from 11 games. It's hardly like these guys are playing at double the value of their money, triple the value of their money. And I can only imagine players who've been at the top level, who are coming from high contracts and high wages and coming to the club on really cheap deals or even free transfers, are only demanding even bigger wages. Meanwhile, you've got other teams like PSG who, yeah, they're spending a lot of money, but it is money they can afford, and they're getting a lot of output from younger talent that they're buying from within the league. So that's just some thoughts I wanted to put out there. I think the French league is very much recoverable, but it's in quite a bad position right now, and in all honesty we don't know who the next team is that's going to come out and turn out to be really financially struggling. Hopefully Lyon can sort themselves out. We really don't want to see another team go down. Hopefully they can kind of sort their finances out and maybe fix up and get a better transfer strategy, sort this wage bill out. But hey, I just wanted to make a quick video covering this. I'd be interested for you guys to let me know in the comments below what you think. Was the writing on the wall for teams like Lyon and Bordeaux? Are there going to be any other French teams that are struggling? How do you think that French football could return to a more stable and prosperous place? Be sure to let me know in the comments. I'll be interested to hear what you all have to say, and I will see everybody in the next video.